In the spirit of reconciliation, Limelight Arts Travel acknowledges the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea, and community. We pay our respect to their elders, past and present, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples today. Well, welcome everyone to the next session of our Talking Tours series. And today we're talking with Emily Wakeling about contemporary art in Japan, particularly around the art islands, which are growing. They continue to grow, which is quite an extraordinary phenomenon. So Emily is an Australian art writer and curator who has lived and worked in Tokyo, London, and across Australia. She holds an MPhil in art history from the University of Queensland, and with a thesis positioning Japanese literary and gender studies within global feminist art. She's also been a recipient of several scholarships, and she continued her studies in contemporary Japanese art at the prestigious Sophia University in Tokyo. During her time in Tokyo, she taught contemporary art and historical art history as an adjunct professor at Kanagawa University and at Joshiba University of Art and Design, as well as editing the online bilingual art guide, Tokyo Art Week. Emily is a curator at the Art Gallery of Ballarat, having previously held positions at Rockhampton Museum of Art, Artspace Mackay, and the Queensland Art Gallery. Her cross-cultural curatorial projects are spread across Japan and Australia, including Australian artists in Tokyo art spaces and Japanese artists living and working in Australia. She's also a long-serving freelance writer who has contributed to international art journals and publications. So we're very, very happy to have Emily leading our tour to Japan Arts Islands and Tokyo this May, and to have Emily joining us to talk more about kind of what these places have to offer. So just as I suppose a quick way of just introducing you a little bit further, Emily, how did you first become interested in the art and culture of Japan?
Well, look, I have reflected on this recently, and I'm going to start by saying that I grew up in the 90s in Brisbane. And, you know, that was a time of competing narratives when it came to Asia in Australia. It was the arrival of Pauline Hanson and very conservative politics. But it was also the time, that was the beginning of the Asia Pacific Triennial as well, which is a very well known series of exhibitions that focus on Asian artists and artists from the Pacific. And you know, those exhibitions really inspired me to be interested in contemporary art and to study art at university. And you know, like during my university studies, I also had the opportunity there to work. One of my first jobs was front of house as a gallery guard at the State Gallery, where they hold the Asia Pacific Triennial and also have a huge Asia Pacific collection as well. And, you know, that really inspired me to then go back and do a Masters of Art History in contemporary Japanese art. So that's kind of where it started. And then I got a scholarship to go to Tokyo and do further study, as you mentioned before. And look, that interest and connection I have with Japanese art and artists, it continues today, even though I'm back in Australia.
And I can imagine that the cultural landscape between Australia and Japan, as well as Asia more generally, has changed quite a bit since the 90s. Is there anything in particular that you would focus on for where you kind of what you see change most in that?
Oh, absolutely. Look, the 90s in terms of Japan as well, that was a couple of eras ago as well. So we're going, back to Heisei and now we're in Reiwa as well. And like the 90s in Japan, it was coming off the back of all the bubble financial, the successes of the 80s, the excesses of the 80s. And you can see in the artworks that the 90s, when it all kind of collapsed, there was this sort of this disappointment, I guess, with something that was promised and not delivered on. And that it wasn't just about money. It was also about the social safety net and everything that came with having all that wealth. Um, and so that was the 90s, and that kind of a lost decade, they often describe it as. It wasn't just one decade in the end, it extended into the 2000s as well. And you can see that in terms of artworks with this kind of quiet, internalized frustration in a lot of artworks. I'm thinking especially about, the kind of cute pop style of artworks that became very famous in that time. You've got your Takashi Murakami and Yoshitomo Nara, etc. Having these very, on the front, it's very cute and accessible, but, it was talking about metaphors for a deeper unrest as well. So yeah, you could definitely see that. And then, of course, the other pivotal moment in Japanese contemporary art since then as well was, of course, the 2011 earthquake. So those kind of internal frustrations, you could see them kind of going outward after that time, and all those kind of expressions of what are we doing? Who, what society do I belong with? Those kind of questions became to the fore, and very much more externalized and more about social connection and things like that. So that's kind of my perception of what's happened in Japanese art over those decades since the 90s.
And just the thinking that with that kind of externalizing of those frustrations, both
Yeah.
personal as well as social and political frustrations,
Mm.
did that also encompass kind of, I suppose, a willingness to challenge some of the perceived conservatism of Japanese society, or to start talking about particular issues that had kind of been kept under the carpet in the 90s and 2000s?
Yeah, for sure. And, whether that's done in a confronting way, there's only a few, I would say, that are that confrontational with addressing a problem. But, often it is expressed through trying to find a solution to that problem. So through social connection and through, restoring the environment and things like that. So, yeah, definitely there's those kind of really strong tangents that you can tell you can definitely see those now.
Yes, yeah, I can imagine.
Mm.
Just remembering a couple of exhibitions I've seen recently with the
Yeah.
environment around Fukushima and kind of the efforts to restore not only the environment but the reputation of the region, which extends
Mm.
150 k's of inland over the mountains. It still is kind of somehow affected just by the association.
That's
So,
right.
yeah. Um,
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
no, that's okay. Yeah. So I'm just wondering if from this period, when you've been so deeply engaged with contemporary Japanese art, is it a particular artist or style that captivates you in particular?
Well, especially for today, I wanted to focus on, all the beautiful things that have been happening with, artists who have a real experiential approach to their artworks. And by that, what I mean is the artists who are really concerned with the full experience of coming across their artwork. So, starting with how you arrive, and what five senses are, how are they operating, and then setting the right scene in which to embrace their artwork and take it in. It's something that I see a lot with, a lot of the greats, I'd say, like, for example, Lee Yufan and Hiroshi Sugimoto and Isamu Noguchi, Mariko Mori, and Rei Naito as well. It's that experiential style that I'm a really big fan of. And yeah, I've had some really amazing experiences with experiential art. I think that really helps, uh, to take in what they're making. And it's really important, especially for their practices, because often they are dealing with these very heavy, huge themes like death and eternity, the universe. So, setting the right scene is essential to embracing the artwork.
Yeah, that just reminds me of somebody like you
Mm.
mentioned, Ray Nato, and her
Yeah.
ability to kind of deal with very deep philosophical themes,
Yeah.
or very more than philosophical, perhaps they are more spiritual. In that she's not trying to convince you with a logical argument. That kind of it's that experiential moment, like on just thinking of somebody like on at the Teshma Art Museum, where kind of there's the ritual process before you've even arrived.
That's right. Yeah, one of my favorite artworks, that one. Yeah, I'd love to actually, yeah, talk about that one today. But maybe once we get to the art islands, I can talk in a bit more detail.
Yeah, absolutely, because it's an it's an extraordinary work to try and
Mm.
explain, given that it's so um, yeah, it's so experiential. Okay, well then, just thinking then, so kind of because you work so frequently across Japan and Australia, and kind of having to no doubt do some of that kind of intercultural translation between cultures that are quite different. Are there particular aspects or particular themes in Japanese artists' work that you've found as a curator particularly appeal to Australians?
Well, I mean, those experiential type of artworks and artists that I mentioned, whether Australian viewers notice it or not, those aspects of how you enter and experience, I keep using the word experience, sorry, how you take in the artwork, it does, it is a big part of their major international appeal. I think there is something universal in that, even though, yeah, perhaps there is often a spiritual intention with it. I myself, who's coming from it from, a non-spiritual way, it's still an amazing experience. So, it just seems to, for me, a lot of those spiritual intentions still overlap with, the physicality of actually coming into a space and how you view and hear and feel in the space. So, yeah, I think, for Australians, we often don't stop and reflect on the big matters of how small our lives possibly could be in the scheme of the earth and the universe and within time. But, when we are given the right time and space to do that, which is what a lot of contemporary art that I've mentioned intends to do, it gives us that permission to, you know, do this through a creative act. And I think that, because it's so rare, perhaps in our everyday lives here in Australia, I think it could be a very treasured memory.
Absolutely. And I'm just thinking
Mm.
just that time to reflect, that time to
Yeah.
think about one's relationship to the cosmos more broadly, or to things that outlive us by millennia, is something I don't think we
Yeah.
do very often. Um,
Mm.
but in the way that you think of that, is that something that's specifically Japanese, or is the way that it's
Mm.
articulated through experience something that's coming out of a longer Japanese culture?
Yeah, that's right. So I think there's something in there for everyone. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Mm.
Okay. Um, so maybe just thinking of just because a lot of the works you've mentioned they're all some of the artists you've mentioned have work on the art islands.
Yes.
Yeah, is there our also the art islands? Just thinking as well have kind of been part of that process of restoring a landscape, right from the beginning when the foundation conceived of trying to take these nearly abandoned into post-industrial islands and restoring a landscape, turning them into places for pursuing our well-being. Of the works
Mm.
that are there today, are there any in particular that you think speak to that ambition the most?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. all of them are so like, yeah, they're all pretty unforgettable. But I, yeah, it is an interesting story, isn't it, with the art islands? Like, I mean, um, yeah, the way that they started as well, with the billionaire Fukutake, and the mayor of the islands, coming together, and with the right amount of money, they
Yes.
could just, they had these utopian ideals, and they saw that it could happen. Yeah, it was really beautiful. It is about the restoration of nature, as you say, but it was also about the restoration of the towns and the people in there as well. How this belief that having a healthy way to live, which in the sense of the everything that a person needs in order to feel like they're living a full life. So that's all the essentials, of course, but it's also about having a relationship to nature, and also this idea of self-actualization as well. So yeah, all those things coming together to be this concept of well-being, it's really extraordinary. And yeah, I can't help but think about that as I'm walking through the islands and coming across all the different artworks. But yes, that's a bit of a prelude to yeah, which ones in particular. Look, I think the Chichu Art Museum is just an amazing space. So it's um, it's essentially a building that is underground. Chichu means in the earth, and it's a very elaborate cave, I guess, but with very strategic windows in the ceilings to let in the natural light. And that's a really lovely concept there by the architect, and it allows for, even though you are in a cave, you know exactly where you are, and the sky is above you, and you can see. I think you can still see, yeah, trees perhaps, and perhaps the water as well, from some viewpoints. And it's just a lovely way of getting the message across that, yeah, the intention is that you are within nature, even though you're experiencing something as perhaps exotic as a set of paintings by the French Impressionist Claude Monet. So yeah, it's just an extraordinary way of coming across those artworks. Yeah, the experience being such a priority there. Yeah, I think that's a
Yes.
really good
Yeah,
example. Mm.
it is. And it's so different from how we'd say see his works in a gallery or in a traveling exhibition that kind of you've got that
Yep.
journey you make through this underground structure designed by
Mm.
Tadao Ando, and then there's the place where
Yeah,
you have to remove your shoes to be able to walk into this
that's
room
right. Yeah.
with natural light coming from
Mm.
the sky and just illuminating the works. And
Mm-hmm.
it's sort of one of those things that there are no photos of because, or there are very few photos of because photography is banned inside the museum, which I think
Yes.
helps us refocus on being there in the moment and not trying to photograph every detail and to experience later.
Mm. That's right. Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, yeah, shoes off, and yeah, very different to coming across a Claude Monet in Musée d'Orsay, for example. So yeah, very very different. And yeah, that all helps it make a unforgettable experience. Yeah. Mm.
Yeah. Yep. So from the Chichu as well, I think one of the might have been the first custom built museum on the island
Yeah, the
was
second, I believe. Yeah,
okay. Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
quite early. Mm.
Yeah. Yeah. Um,
They all started getting built in around 92. And but I think the Chichu, perhaps it's about 2000, if I've got it right. Um, and yeah, it really just, yeah, sprouted. Yeah, yeah, the buildings really sprouted up in that 2010 kind of time, and they're still happening. They're still being built. There's a brand new museum that opened last year as well, which I'm looking forward to visiting for the first time.
Yes, it's definitely worth it. I was lucky enough to have been with a group
Mm.
there last year, and it's kind of the
Yeah.
exhibitions will change, but it's
Yeah.
you have the foundation collecting buildings by Ando in particular that they're very
Uh-huh.
much, um, but it's different just to for you and everybody who would like those. A different building by Ando, so it's quite
Mm.
exceptional. Yeah, I just
Yeah.
think of just are there other kind of places on, say, Naoshima that you're particularly interested in kind of taking people to?
Yeah, another one that I'd like to mention is of course there's the Art House project. So that being some of the houses within the town that are no longer occupied by anybody. They have been one by one converted into artworks in themselves. So hence Art House project. My favorite of those is not a house but a shrine. So Hiroshi Sugimoto's restoration of a Shinto shrine in the town. It has its origins back in the 17th century. It used to be part of the gate or entry into a castle, which is long gone. And the story I heard about this particular artwork was that the shrine collapsed, unfortunately. So it did become, you know, the opportunity, I guess, to restore it and make some sort of artistic intervention. However, I don't think Hiroshi Sugimoto would like the word intervention. I think he's done everything he possibly could to make sure it's not a uh, something that would go against the spirit of the object, the site. So he has used the ancient materials and principles of Shinto in order to uh, you know uh, what am I trying to say? To continue the shrine, continue its life, I guess. And so, what that has resulted in visually is this extraordinary all glass set of steps. So it goes from below the ground up until it's connecting with the elevated shrine itself, and this allows for the light to, which is one of the principles of ancient Shinto: light, reflection, um, the nature around it, of course, and things like water and wind as well. But yeah, using the light and the glass allows for the light to go into the earth and kind of uh, reach places it hasn't before, perhaps. And yeah, it's just an extraordinary kind of uh, as you'd expect from him, an extraordinary use of the elements, perhaps, is the best way to describe it. Mm.
Hmm. And is that kind of process thought of as or conceived of as a type of healing, or a kind of or is it seen more as something else?
A healing. I think it's definitely in that sense of that overall well-being, I would say. But yeah, you're right. Thinking about how a lot of the Art Island projects by Benesse are about restoring and healing the town and nature. Um, Definitely in that spirit it is, because the shrine had stopped functioning because it had broken with age. So yeah, definitely it is about healing for sure. Yeah.
Hmm. And it's just thinking more
Mm.
about the sort of the art house projects. Is there kind of
Uh,
a bigger
yeah.
context around what was happening on the island and in the
Oh,
town
sure.
that makes that kind of revitalization significant?
That's true. Yeah. So yeah, that's right. The reason why the mayor and Fukutake were so interested in, yeah, restoring and healing these islands is because, there was a huge drop in the population. And that is because of the loss of industry on the islands as well. The fishing industries were no longer viable. And, that was the way of life for the villagers on the islands. So, those sort of, and if we go even further than that, the other consequence, being the environmental changes as well. So there was all these consequences as a result of the environment changing. People no longer had the same relationship with nature. They couldn't fish, and that changed the villages. They no longer had a livelihood. So yeah, a lot of young people did leave the towns. And we can see that a lot in all across Japan. It is a plight of many small villages, that the young people do need to leave the towns in order to find opportunities. Um, but yeah, and there are also issues to do with illegal dumping of rubbish and things like that on an industrial scale, and those kind of things that bring a lot of stigma to towns as well. It's not just the environmental damage; it's also the in a sense, it's the spiritual and communal damage as well. A lack of pride in their village, I would say. But yeah, again, instead of confronting that in a negative way, yeah, it's definitely about addressing what can be done and just yeah, the in all the communications about the Benesse projects, it is about the positives and not too much on what the problems are that they are addressing. Mm.
Yeah. Yeah, I imagine that when you're dealing with people's, it's actually their village. Some of the people there,
Yeah.
they've grown up there, they've lived there their entire life, they've seen
Mm.
and experienced that kind of social and economic and environmental damage. The people living there, are they much involved in the process with the Benessa Foundation, or is it kind of just a foundation coming in with money to splash around?
Yes, I've been there a few times for work and for pleasure, and that is something that I do think about a lot. I think overall the intention is great, and I have had opportunity to talk to locals on the neighbouring island of Teshima. I think there are certain maybe pinch points perhaps with when things get too popular. But overall, it is hard to get past the official communication kind of front with Benesse, of course. And I did try to, talk with locals and see, what do you actually think about this? And I did hear resounding positive responses to that. I'm sure it's not universal. I'm sure there are some people who have complaints, but I think overall, I mean, the town is there, the village is there. They do have a tourism economy now. They do have an industry. And I think a lot of people have adapted to that.
Yeah, which is great to see, especially I think it's something
Mm.
that well, we have a lot of people in Australia can relate to from regional areas, that kind of
Yeah.
that depopulation and kind of the benefit that the arts
Mm.
or kind of art galleries and other kind of cultural infrastructure can have to kind of bring people back, which is yeah, quite extraordinary. It might be rather difficult to measure if you're filling out a government grant to be able to say exactly what the definable benefit is, but it
Yeah,
seems to be quite visible. You mentioned
that's right.
Tesham has come up a couple of times, I think, and kind of
Yeah.
it was I imagine it would have been quite an interesting place to talk to people from Teshima about the transformation of the
Mm.
island. So Teshima was the one of the largest illegal industrial dumping grounds in Japan's history.
That's right.
Although it had previously been an island that lived off agriculture and fishing. Um,
Yeah.
so, so what sort of projects on Teshima, or what sort of projects are there on Teshima that kind of relate to the particular history of Teshima itself?
Yeah. Oh, to the history of Teshima.
I know it's a
Yes.
very obscure topic. Or
Uh,
people's
I
experience, I
lived in
suppose.
yeah. I went there for an artwork in particular. This was for a writing job. I don't think it's there anymore, unfortunately, but it was a beautiful gesture. There are quite a few temporary artworks as well. So, we do get lucky and unlucky with, what comes and goes. But this particular artwork was a boat, a fishing boat, but it was made completely out of mirrors. It was created by a Japanese Australian artist, Hiromi Tango, and she's a master of connecting with people. She's such a loving, open person, and she was able to make beautiful, lasting relationships there on the island with the Teshima residents, and they just loved what she did. She obviously got to hear the stories about, the illegal dumping and what that did to the island, and the lack of, industry with fishing, which was, as I said, a way of life. It wasn't just about selling fish. It was about the whole process of going out to sea, praying for good luck, praying for safety, lots of rituals around that. She obviously picked up on that and made an artwork that said something there about, uh, yeah, kind of like the ghost of what used to be there, and how the mirror, it could reflect back on what is actually there now, and encourage people to. I think essentially I saw it as like have a look at what is here, and adapt to that, which must be something that she picked up from the locals themselves, because they just loved this artwork.
Yes, yeah. The boat reminds me as well of the other boat work in the needle factory, with the
Ah, yeah.
yeah,
Mm.
with the I get playing on the significance of the of fishing, not only
Yes.
just as an economic activity, but something that structures social and
Mm.
community life on a village, and the kind of that kind of
Precisely.
preservation of something. As you're saying with that, with the work with the mirrors, it's kind of
Yeah.
not trying to recreate the fishing industry, but kind of
Mm.
looking forward while remembering, maintaining that kind of connection with the past. Mm.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's a great connection to make there with the bamboo structure. Yeah. So in that sense, yeah, they still have an artwork that is a monument to that. That's great. Mm.
Yeah, yeah. Um,
Mm.
so from your kind of experience to kind of what you see on, say, Naoshima and Teshima have a different feeling or a different purpose, like different sorts of things that make the experience of the islands different?
Um, I suppose so. Yeah, I mean, Naoshima is the main draw, so it does certainly have that sort of centrality to it. It is the center in that sense. Whereas Teshima, also in the timeline of things, it was something that was built upon by Benesse much later. So, yeah, you can kind of, I don't know, Teshima seems more perhaps cohesive. There are smaller projects, but yeah, I don't know, they seem to be, telling, I don't know, bringing the island together, and they all seem much more in reach as well, even though these are small islands. But Naoshima does seem quite large when it's the middle of summer and you're, okay, how long do I have to go to get to that one over there? But whereas Teshima seems so much more manageable in that sense. And I think the real jewel in the crown for Teshima is the relatively recent Teshima Art Museum. I would say is, as I mentioned before, it's essentially it's only one artwork. I'm not sure why they call it the Teshima Art Museum, but it is an artwork called Matrix by Rei Naito, and it is a collaboration with an architect as well, Ryue Nishizawa. who's part of Sana. And yeah, that one is definitely the major artwork of the island. Yeah.
And you can tell us a little bit more about it.
Yeah, sure. I'd love to.
Yeah.
It's such an unforgettable experience. It'll stay with you. I promise. It is an extraordinary space. It's almost like an impossible space because the way the architect and the artist have designed it, it seems impossible that the roof stays up. There's no columns to hold it up, but somehow it just stays. And there are three or two major holes in the ceiling as well, which open up into the tops of the trees and the sky above, and lets in a lovely breeze. It was a lovely breeze on the day that I visited. And yeah, it is an extraordinary space. No color, it's like a light gray everywhere. And the floor is completely smooth. And again, it's about taking your shoes off, which is lovely on a hot day, and just padding across this smooth concrete. And it's an artwork that encourages everyone to slow down and observe. And what happens when you slow down and observe is that you notice that there are small changes happening in this space, very small changes, and they become so interesting. I like it's hard to describe it to people. They're like, okay, what's interesting about that? But in the space, there's something about the pace of it, and yeah, what happens with this water feature essentially, but it's not a water feature like anything else. That really just commands a oh, not even commands, that's such a strong word, but yeah, in order to experience it, you do have to stop and wait and observe. It's such a lovely experience, and you can spend as long as you like there. And I'm sure a lot of people have forgotten what the time is and just stayed with it for hours, I would say, without an exaggeration. Just an extraordinary space.
It is, and with those two
Mm.
apertures into the building, and getting
Mhm.
the breeze, the sensation of that breeze, especially on a warm day, and the scent or kind
Yeah.
of the birds singing from outside, the things that you start to
Mhm.
subtle things you start to notice when the artist and architect have found a way to make you slow down and actually just observe those small changes happening in the space all around you, which is yeah, quite
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah,
Yes,
it
and
totally is. Yeah. And just about the theme as well. Yeah, as I think you mentioned before, that Naito is an artist who is very interested in the spiritual, and I would say a big interest of hers is, trying to cross that different plane of existence as well into another realm. And, that's often done with very fine, light, airy installations, sometimes textiles. But yeah, it is definitely something that is meant to be of another plane, I would say. Yeah, it's just amazing. So, and yeah, I think it's very, very effective.
it is, it is, it's
Mm.
yeah, something you really have to be able to experience because it is that kind of
Yep.
yes, that kind of a quality that is difficult to contain within an essay or a blurb.
Isn't it? Yeah, yeah. There was a person in there with me at the same time, and they were writing notes and trying to describe it, I guess, in words and sketches. But I thought, oh gosh, I wouldn't know what to write. Yeah, it's just yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I wonder what they wrote.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So just thinking as well, so kind of other than kind of the things, the highlights and the fantastic things that kind of there are on Naoshima and on
Mm.
Teshima. Are there any other things that you would point to in the region as kind of unexpected, um, unexpected must see?
Yeah, for sure. Well, we'll be based on Takamatsu, which is I mean, it's a capital city of one of the prefectures, but it's a lot more than that as well, because it is the gateway. It is the historical gateway to the islands, and you know, yeah, I'm so glad that we're not spending all our time on the islands because there is actually a lot to see in Takamatsu as well. And there's some lovely connections to make as well. The very recent, I think it opened last year, there's a new, what's it called? Oh, there's this new stadium and it's
Uh,
designed by the same architects that have been heavily involved with the Art Islands, Sana, so the duo that I mentioned before. And that's right next door to the hotel, if I'm correct in reading our map. So that's meant to be this very exciting new building that I'm glad we get to see. But also, I was delighted to learn that I know that there's an Isamu Noguchi museum in Long Island in the States, but I didn't realize until recently he also has a museum in Takamatsu as well. So it's and I'm looking forward to seeing that one as well. So Isamu Noguchi being a very famous Japanese American artist, he did pass away in '88. He lived for most of the 20th century, and he had a really yeah, exceptional life. He uh, was born in Tokyo. Oh, no, in this. Oh, he grew up a little bit in Japan, and I can't even keep track of it all now. Um, he grew up until he was about 12 in Japan, and then went to the States for education. Um, but he was back and forth throughout his life between the two countries. And he had a very complicated relationship with being Japanese in America and also being American in Japan. So he lived between these two cultures, and the resulting sculptures that he made are just the result of that. They are visualizations of how he existed across these two cultures. And yeah, so it makes sense for him to have two iconic museums, one in the States and one in Japan, and Takamatsu is the home of it.
and that kind of, I suppose that sense with Noguchi's work that kind of Westerners or Anglophone
Mm.
Westerners might look at it and think it's quintessentially Japanese, and
Yeah,
Japanese people look at the work and think it's very Western influenced. Kind of it seems to
right.
his work seems to always,
Yeah.
um, I guess, reflect how people saw him in each culture, which is kind of quite
That's
interesting.
right.
Yeah.
And he was a really special person as well. He did experience the Japanese internment camps in America, and a lot of his artworks and his political actions were very much motivated by peace. So yeah, really gorgeous to take that message from a lot of what he's making as well.
Yes. Yeah, I can
Mm.
imagine, especially as somebody so caught in the middle in a variety of ways, and still
Mm.
just thinking of it as you say, kind of a a message
Mm.
of peace and of I don't know the other word for it, not quite acceptance, almost a type of a unification that comes through peace. Um,
Yeah, yeah, that's right. Like a universality, I guess. Yeah, a kinship for sure.
yes,
Mm.
yeah. So after the time in kind of on the art islands, exploring the art islands and kind of what there is in Takamatsu, which, as you say, there's a surprisingly a lot there.
Mm.
Kind of the tour then goes to Tokyo. So going from somewhere
Yeah.
like Takamatsu and on the art islands, it's relatively quiet. It's kind of quite provincial, and then jumping into a kind of into Tokyo to look at
Mm.
the modern contemporary art world, I suppose, inside Tokyo.
Yeah.
What few are the highlights of their Tokyo section of the tour?
Yeah, right. Well, I mean, I love Tokyo, and I did live there for several years. Uh, it is a major international metropolis, and it has so like dozens and dozens of major art museums. Look, beyond that, I mean, it doesn't have to be overwhelming, though. We can choose a few of the essential big ones. And I'm looking forward to showing people, if they are first time visitors, what you know, the highest of highs of the Tokyo big major international institutions can be. So that will be on our first day, going to Mori Tower up to the 55th floor to see the Mori Art Museum. And that is, in many ways, it is so Tokyo. It is. So I'm very much, looking forward to showing that to first timers. It is, but then of course, I'm looking forward to um, other highlights as well. I think this tour can give you a few opportunities to see things that are less on the tourist track as well. We can go and see some commercial galleries that specialize in contemporary Japanese art. We can, depending on what's on available at the time, and we can also have a look at Artisan Museum. So that's a relatively new museum. It's essentially a rebranded museum. It has a prestigious collection of international and Japanese art. It used to be known as the Bridgestone Collection, and that particular art museum, I'm very much looking forward to showing people around as well. I think, because it is so new, people are always often surprised by it, and the whole experience, which is, again, it is in a fancy big tower in the Tokyo Station kind of district, the
Mm.
business district. But then you step inside and you get to see, just beautiful examples of historic Japanese artworks, as well as a lot of the European impressionist 20th, 19th and 20th century masters. You can see a Picasso, Matisse, Renoir. They're all on the walls, just right there, and it's just a lovely way to see that, which is the it might sound a bit surprising that you'd come to Tokyo to see those impressionists, but the fact is that in that economic high of the 1980s in Japan, a lot of collections, private collections, public collections, became the owners of a lot of very important European artworks at that time. So yeah, it is a very Tokyo experience in that sense.
And that kind of sense of, I suppose that kind of contemporaneity of Tokyo, and that kind of also pointing to that history of exchange between Japan and the West, and particularly in the case of, say, French Impressionism, there's
Mm.
that mutual love affair between kind of late 19th century French artists and late
Yeah.
19th century Japanese works as well. There's that interaction that's been going
Hmm.
on. So it's not kind of, as you're saying, it's not accidental. They chose those works to collect.
Yeah, that's right. And coincidentally, when the tour is in May in Tokyo, there will be a Claude Monet exhibition, which will include works from the Artisan collection as well as from Musée d'Orsay. So they will be major artworks in that show, and I do plan to go to this exhibition with the participants, and talk about those connections that can be made between Monet's heavily influenced painting practice, by what he could see coming over from Japan to Paris at that time. A lot of the woodblock prints, for example, the flattening of the field, you can see it in his work, and also just a lovely, delicate treatment of natural elements as well. I think is another way to see that inspiration. Long time ago, there was a Australian exhibition called Monet and Japan, I believe, and yeah, it was very influential. People still talk about it in the art world, at least, and yeah, it was very much. It stayed with a lot of curators like myself who loved that connection between the two cultures. Mm.
Yes, I'm just thinking how that kind of you get the seasonality coming through in Impressionism and that kind of that very
Yes.
that like what we're talking about with the works like Ray Nato's work, that kind of experiential
Mm-hmm.
nature that in the practice and philosophy of Impressionism is this being in nature appreciating the fall of light, and
Yes.
not just artfully trying to construct perspective.
Yes. I lovely. That's a lovely reading of it. I love that. Yep.
Okay,
Mm.
I'm just recalling the exhibition, what I remember of the
Yeah.
exhibition.
Yeah.
Some things
Mm.
stick. Um, yes, I'm just thinking as well with the exhibition that'll be on in the National Arts Centre as well. There's kind of bit of from what's on in Tokyo, the selection of the work that also of completely different medium, different context, but also is kind of
Mhm.
drawing on this interaction between Japanese and Western European culture.
Yes, that's right. So I think I have it correct. So that National Arts Centre exhibition is Hanai Mori, the fashion
Yes,
designer. Yes, yes.
yes, yes.
Very important 20th century fashion designer who brought kimono to haute. So basically, bringing it to the Western fashion world and making these extraordinary uh, cultural meetings between the two. And yeah, so very important to the history of fashion and the history of contemporary kimono as well. So yeah, I look forward to talking more about the history of kimono and its significance today and how yeah Hanai Mori is important in that story. Yeah, that'll definitely be part of the tour.
Yes, and then kind of with the reputation of something like the National Arts Centre, they will have
Oh yeah.
iconic and extraordinary works of hers, pieces of hers, which they're yeah they're I don't know how they do it so consistently, but they do in terms of
Yes.
what they're able to bring again to another very lovely space that kind of allows natural light to flow in where it's appropriate, but still
Mhm.
keeps plenty of rooms where you shouldn't have too much light on the artworks or on the textiles.
That's right. Yes, I'm glad you mentioned the place itself as well. Yeah, the National Arts Centre is this, again, like how do they do it? This giant wave of a window, which is it takes the whole height of the building as well, and it makes this yeah amazing foyer. It is so recognizable and I think that it's used in a lot of film and television as well as like a very metropolitan building setting. Yeah, and it's just so lovely to look at from all the angles. And as you say, yes, the window looks out not only on nature but also the incidental backdrop as well, which is the other like amazing towers, including Maury Tower. That's all part of the view as well.
Mm.
Yeah, just amazing, and also yeah, as you say, it is a very functional space. It holds a lot of blockbuster exhibitions, so this will be the one we're lucky to have on while we're there.
Yes. So it's kind of
Mm.
it's quite a range of kind of moving across
Mm.
across over the course of 10 days from the art islands through to kind of parts of Japanese art history, and then that kind of that those connections, mutual connections, that mutual influence between Japan and different parts of the West, from the Impressionists to people like Noguchi to Hanamura and others, and kind of in the architecture itself. So it's quite a lot, and a very, very rich tour, especially with the selection of what's available, given that Tokyo always has, it's got a, I think the official guide for kind of comes out every couple of months and it just lists what's on, and it's about 30 pages long.
Mm,
There's a lot going on. But I
yeah.
suppose just lastly, what do you most want for people to take away from this tour?
Mm. Um, well, I think there's a lot to take away. I think everyone will take away something slightly different. But what I do encourage people to appreciate about these, world famous art islands and Tokyo as well, it's a vision of, what's possible when art is not considered to be, you know, a an extra, a hobby, a luxury. Art doesn't have to be that. It can be about, an essential part of our well-being. So I think that's the most valuable thing that we can take away from the art islands and some of the artworks and places we'll be visiting in Tokyo as well. Um, and going back to that, bringing that philosophy back to Australia as well, and finding ways in which to live that as part of our personal lives. I think that would be, the best souvenir that we could bring back.
Absolutely, kind of more than a lasting memory, something that kind of
Yeah.
changes the way that you think and how you interact with uh,
Hmm.
the world around us and the, kind of the communities we
Yeah.
live in.
Yeah. I think it certainly could. Mm.
Yeah, excellent. Well, I'm sure people will come away with that from the places that we've selected on the tour, and the range of different things to think about, different types of experiences to have, from the art islands through to the buzz of Tokyo.
Mm.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, thank you very, very much for your time, Emily. And kind of, if anybody has any questions for Emily or about the tour, please feel free to send them through to us and we can pass them on to Emily. Or if there are just practical questions you may have about the tour as well, if you send them on to our info@limelightartstravel.com.au address, then we'll be able to get back to you or to pass the other questions you may have for Emily on to her. Thank you everyone for coming along to this session. And yes, if you've well, yes, we'll look forward to hearing more from Emily in future as well.